Hello everyone. So today I'm going to be guiding you through a comparison video between our Phoretix 1D Western Blot and 1D sds-page analysis software and another competing product, the GelAnalyzer software. Now, if you've seen my previous videos about the comparison versus ImageLab and things like that, you know I normally try and do these side by side. However, the first kind of difference I've noticed between the two different pieces of software is while Phoretix is scalable to your display, so I'm running this on about 3K display, not full 4K. The GelAnalyzer software won't let me clip it to the side of the screen, but I don't know if that's just because I'm at the image import step. But I'm going to do it the same way I do all of these comparison videos. I'm using the same image, and I'm going to see how easy it is to basically run a full analysis using the software. So I am, of course, biased. I work for TotalLab. I'm part of the development process for Phoretix 1D. I'll try not to let my bias creep in too much, but if you're watching this video, please take it into consideration that whilst the things I show you are correct and truthful, I do have a bias, and you should never believe anyone you see on the internet anyway. Do your own research, which you can do. You can get a free trial copy of Phoretix 1D from our website. I'll put the link in the description below. You'll be able to try it out on your own images and see how you feel about it. Of course, if you do have any feedback for development, future feature inclusion in the software, we're completely open to that. Please let us know, and there's a very high chance it'll make it into the next build of the software that we release. So we're very flexible and open to constructive criticism. So I've obviously got my image in Phoretix 1D here, and this being the tutorial image that I've worked with many times, I know this needs to be inverted. So the import process, as you've seen on some of my other videos, is simply open the image and it will appear. I'll invert it here. With GelAnalyzer, the opening process is quite difficult. So the first thing I noticed is GelAnalyzer doesn't seem to scale the display to match 4K or high resolution screens. Now, this could be a limitation of the age of the software, I don't know, or some setting that I need to turn on, but certainly it's not natively scaled, so these buttons here are really, really small on my screen. So if I want to analyze a new image, and I can get the same image that I'm using in Phoretix 1D here, it looks like we support roughly the same different types of file types, so PNG, JPEG. We do support bitmaps as well as a few other more niche file types, but broadly the main industry standard ones there are covered by both pieces of software. So you can see here, kind of skip past that, the open new image window. This file browser is quite difficult to use. It's quite antiquated. It's very ImageJ-esque. It's very of the time. It's not kind of standard. It's very small to kind of see your files. I mean, I can expand it here, but the text is very small. And then the next step, it asks you to perform an image rotation, even if you don't need to, I guess. So you can click and drag and perform your image rotation there. Of course, we have that within Phoretix 1D if we need to do that. We have that within the edit image function here. So we can perform crops and rotates and things like that, but we don't need to for this image. So I'll just click on next. It prompts you to perform a crop. Again, you could do that in Phoretix 1D, but we don't assume that it's required on every image. So this is kind of just getting in the way of me being able to analyze my image here. Select the type of image. So Phoretix 1D tries to do this automatically. It tries to detect what are your bands and what is your background, but obviously we have the big invert measurements button for when it doesn't do a great job of that. This selection here, these settings are basically asking the user to define that. So rather than take a guess, rather than the software taking a guess for itself, it's just making you tell it, which we have the option for in the invert measurements button anyway. So this is interesting. So actually, truthfully, the correct presentation of this image should be light bands on a dark background. However, when you open the image in the beginning, in both pieces of software, it's incorrectly extrapolated the image or read the image to say that it's dark background, dark bands on a white background. But you can see by looking at the data that's incorrect. But we don't have such a view within GelAnalyzer. So how are we supposed to make that assessment? I guess you would have to know. You would have to be the person that scanned the image to know what it's supposed to look like. So if I put dark spots on a light background, which is the view I've got here, I imagine that's actually going to be the wrong way around. So let's look at that. So now it's asking me straight away to detect lanes. So I've got, throughout this workflow, I've not really had much control. It's just told me to do things. So detect lane, select a region for lane detection. So this is very similar to what we've got in Phoretix 1D if we use, so we don't need to do this sometimes, but we can specify a box for lanes. And then drag the sides of the selection to target lane width. So we can, for this image where our lanes are bent, we don't seem to have any consideration of that. So we can only do straight up and down boxes. And I mean, it's done a fine, oh, tilted lanes, hang on. So it's done a good job there. It has done a good job of the lane detection there based on that information. Detect bands, minimal slope, slope break, threshold, profile smoothing. So we've got a number of different mechanisms for detecting your lane. I'll just select the default. And again, that's done a pretty good job, to be honest. Detect baseline, so I'm assuming baseline means background. And yeah, we've got the rolling ball. So we've only got rolling ball morphological, which I'm not quite sure on. And valley to valley, which is peak to peak background subtraction, which we've got ourselves. So all of these are reflected in Phoretix 1D as well. And I'll just click on OK. So I think, where have we? If I come to lane 14, so it's not detected. Oh yeah, of course, because that's the large background section there. So I don't think we have any consideration for editing lanes, but I'll just repeat what we've done there within Phoretix 1D. So we can define our box with our number of lanes. So first of all, we can just use detect lanes, automatically detect them, and it actually works really well on this image, but it's a demo image, so you would expect that. If it didn't, we could use an area of interest, turn that setting on there to do what GelAnalyzer's just done, where you basically tell it where your lanes are to make the detection easier. And again, probably exactly the same detection that we've got there using the area of interest. I don't see in, again, these tools are extremely small, modify lanes. So I don't know if we can, so I think we can kind of bend lanes, but they seem to be fixed at the bottom, or you can edit them from the bottom or the top, but you can only edit them in straight lines. So I don't think we seem to have any bending options like we do in Phoretix 1D. Oh no, we do. So we can bend at that point, we can bend at that point. Okay, so we can bend the lanes just like we can do in Phoretix 1D, and a right click will remove the node. So that is exactly the same functionality that we've got in Phoretix 1D. If I just plonk a box in here, I can't remember how many lanes were in this one. But again, if we wanted to edit our lane box, we can edit all of our lanes at once, edit individual lanes and kind of do bending and things like that. So we've got all of the exact same functionality there. We do have the ability to rename your lanes. I don't think that's reflected in this software. I don't know if it's possible to rename your lanes within here if they're selected. It's not immediately obvious. Maybe I need to come out of the, oh, if I turn off modified lanes, can I get any information? Can I rename it up here? No, so I don't think there's any option to kind of rename your lanes with your sample IDs or anything, or batch numbers or anything like that. I don't think that functionality is reflected within GelAnalyzer. Background subtraction, if you've seen any of my videos on this, you know that we've got individual lane and individual channel background subtraction. And we've got rolling ball, we've got rubber band, which is valley to valley, end to end, profile minimum, constant value, image rectangle, lane edge, and manual. So we've got a lot more background subtraction techniques, but we've got all of the ones that GelAnalyzer has. In terms of, I'll just delete this. So we detect the lanes automatically here. In terms of band detection, we've got automatic band detection based on a number of predefined settings that we can use. But we can also add manual bands as well. I don't know if that's possible within this software to be able to. I don't know if you're actually able to add a new band at all. I think you have to settle for. So you can't actually combine automatic lane detection, automatic band detection, and manual band detection. You can only have one of. Well, you can't have manual at all actually. I think you can only have automatic band detection. Let me just see. Oh no. Yeah, so we can add them manually here, and I assume delete them, detect baseline, delete baseline, add band manually, detect bands, delete selected bands. Yeah, so you do have manual tools in there, and I do believe you can add. That's quite nice functionality actually to add a new band. Go top to bottom and then left to right. That's nice. So we can do that. So we can match that functionality. I don't know if we can have the ability to add fixed size bands. So if you know exactly what size band you would be expecting in an area, we have a tool that can add that automatically. Doesn't seem to be reflected in GelAnalyzer, and I understand why, because it's somewhat niche. It was, a customer asked for that functionality and we provided it. Molecular weight calibration. Now I can see that there is calibration there is molecular weight and quantity calibration in this software, just the same as in Phoretix 1D. Molecular weight calibration. So you can choose your fitting curve, which again you can do within Phoretix, but we've got a few more options in this. Load molecular weight standard. Right, so this is very similar to the way that we do it in Phoretix. Now we do have a bunch of pre-made popular kind of commercial templates that we can use that are built directly into the software, but we do have the ability to create your own, and I think GelAnalyzer is taking the approach that everyone is going to have to create their own. But once you've created them, they exist in a bank of templates that anyone can access. So very similar functionality there. So let's just I'll create a new one, just see what this functionality is going to be like. I'm going to do 100 base pairs. So this only seems to deal in base pairs, which doesn't really matter because they're just treated as numbers anyway. So if that's I've made my molecular weight standard there. So I need to select a lane that I want to be my marker lane. Best do one with bands on. Come to my molecular weight calibration, load. Okay, did I not save my molecular standard man? Can I track that? Okay, so I have I have standard saved in my molecular weight standard marker, standard manager, sorry. Now, how do I apply this? Load molecular weight standard on selected lane. It's not showing any of my standards. So I can't. Yeah, I can't see how I image type. I'm not quite certain how I'm supposed to apply this calibration curve. So molecular calibration mouse. Yeah, so it's not immediately clear which button I'm supposed to press to be able to get that. But I can show you how we do it within Phoretix 1D anyway. So you would click your standard, you would decide which one you were using, and then you would click the top of the lane where that standard was present, and immediately you get your molecular weight calibration performed, and you would get all of your information here. So previously I talked about the different curve fitting algorithms that we had within GelAnalyzer, and we've got all of the ones that they have as well as some additional ones. Basically say, how would you like to fit your unknowns to your calibration curve, or what kind of extrapolation should we use for your calibration curve? Finally, there's quantity calibration as well. So RF calibration we have automatically. So if I come down to band section, the RF information is in the band table. So you can choose which results you're looking at any one time. So we've got the normalization table, the lane table, the band table, or none. So if I want to get band information, like for example, which RF position each band is at, it's in the band table. So if I come down to RF calibration, I think we have to perform that manually by adding different RF curves. So it's just added one right at the top of the lane and right at the bottom of the lane here. And that's exactly how we do it as well, but we just do it automatically based off your lane box. So that's exactly the same functionality as in Phoretix. So you can bend your RF curves here, which isn't a function that we have currently, but we will be adding in the future. If we want to come down and perform quantity calibration, linear fit. So I'm not quite sure how we're meant to do that. So obviously within the molecular weight calibration we had standards that we could create, although we couldn't apply them, but that's probably a skill issue on my behalf. We can select a function for our quantity calibration, but it's not immediately obvious how we tell the software okay, so we can type in manual molecular weight values rather than apply our template. I doesn't feel like the right button to be pressing there. It doesn't feel like I should be. I've probably got to do at least 3. It doesn't feel like. Okay, there we go. So if we do it like that, if we type it in, we can get molecular weight calibration. I'm guessing for volume, quantity cal is that if I do the same, if I have known values, is that going to work as well? Yeah. So quantity calibration, you need to type in at least 3 values, and it will start doing it. Start performing the unknown quantity calibration. Within Phoretix 1D, we do a similar thing, but it's a bit more obvious. So, or at least obvious to me, because I've used the software a lot. So you've got to add at least 3 bands. but you can add more if you want. Now let's just check if we can add more. Yeah, so you can have a 4-point curve, for example, within the GelAnalyzer software. So again, within the software, within Phoretix 1D, you add your known bands and you add your known quantity. Let's see if we can. So does GelAnalyzer support point functions? Yes, it does. So the functionality is very similar. However, I don't know if you'll be able to export this to copy to clipboard or export to a file like you can within the Phoretix 1D software, but the quantity calibration functionality is very similar between both pieces of software. Of course, with the Phoretix 1D software, you can create a report, you can export to CSV, you can export to Excel, you can generate the full PDF report at the end of your work. I don't know. So you can export different sections of information. I don't know if you can export this particular information, although maybe you can copy and paste it, but you don't seem to be able to just one-click export to CSV or export to your clipboard if possible. But certainly there doesn't seem to be any formalized PDF report that you can export from GelAnalyzer. However, that being said, it is a very good piece of software. It's very fully functioned. It handled this image very well, but as did Phoretix 1D. It's a good image to use. That's why we use it as a demo image for things like this. But all in all, GelAnalyzer, whilst it's very poorly optimized for kind of high resolution screens, it's done a passable job, done a good job. Again, GelAnalyzer is aimed more at academic markets, whereas Phoretix 1D is aimed more at industrial and pharmaceutical and potentially more technical markets than GelAnalyzer. Now, GelAnalyzer has obviously taken the approach where it tries to guide you as much as possible through the analysis, so you have to click as few buttons as possible. Within Phoretix 1D, we do have the workflow to kind of guide users through stepwise how we think their analysis should be performed, but we have a lot of the manual tools as well to be able to allow users to get really deep into the processing of their results, what's happening at each stage, things like that. And of course, we can work within GMP and 21 CFR environments, which I'm assuming GelAnalyzer cannot. Just the different markets that we work within. But one thing I haven't checked out yet is how GelAnalyzer handles multi-page or multi-channel TIFFs. Now, multi-page or multi-channel TIFFs are extremely important for normalization of your data. It's pretty much standard practice these days to overcome some of the variability built into this technique to use normalization in some fashion. The easiest way of doing that, of course, is to compare your, the abundance or the intensity of the signal for your protein of interest to a housekeeping protein. The benefit of performing this is to make sure that any changes you see in protein expression are truly linked to your experimental conditions and not from some experimental variance. So if you see an increase or say tenfold of your protein of interest, that's not because you put tenfold the amount of protein or the amount of sample in your well to begin with. So you're getting a false positive. So that's the most common use case for data normalization, but you've got a lot of power to be able to normalize between, say on one channel you've got an antibody specific for phosphorylated version of your protein, another channel you've got unphosphorylated, and you want to be able to express that as a ratio to see how that changes under drug treatment or something like that. It can get quite complex, but it's a really powerful tool to be able to make sure that your data is accurate and to be able to make additional comments and learn additional information from your experiment about the things that you're looking at. So support for multi-channel TIFFs is built into, or support for multi-channel image capture is built into a lot of mainstream GelDoc devices these days. Let's see if it's present in GelAnalyzer, and if so, let's see how they handle it, because I've not seen any mention of any normalization function within GelAnalyzer as it is. So I'll grab a new image. An aside that's quite annoying about this file browser is you can't use the back button on your mouse to get back. You have to use this kind of up one level button. I think that's just probably because of the age of the module that's in it. So I have to go through all the kind of rigmarole of doing this, even if I just want to get through to the image. Come on. It's probably not going to work because I've kind of just not given it great advice there, but what I wanted to check is if any of my tools changed to facilitate this different channel workflow. So from what I can tell, nothing's changed. So there doesn't seem to be any way of viewing the different channels of data that I know are in this image. Image type. So there's no way of telling it that this is a multi-channel image. It doesn't seem to have detected it automatically. And there doesn't seem to be any normalization functions that have appeared now that I have a different type of image or a different format of image. So I think I would have to conclude that GelAnalyzer doesn't support multi-channel images. It only supports single-channel images, and if you do give it a multi-channel image, it's just going to flatten it down into a singular channel. Now, if I come across to Phoretix with the same image, you can see that we've actually got 4 channels in this image, and we can turn them on and view them all separately. This is the exact same image that I opened in GelAnalyzer. So from here, of course, we can see all the different pieces of data within our image. And then, of course, if I just grab one detection channel, we can go through and we've got total lane protein, analysis options. We've got normalization options, sorry. Just so if I come through. So within Phoretix 1D, because we're using a multi-channel image, we can normalize to the housekeeping protein on a different channel. We can tell the software which channel a housekeeping protein is on to normalize it. And we can normalize between our different channels, and we can perform total lane volume normalization. And we've basically got all of these normalization tools that are standard in Western blotting and 1D sds-page workflows that don't seem to be available within GelAnalyzer. So that's a real standout difference between the two packages of software, is if you are trying to do anything with multi-page, multi-channel TIFFs, any type of normalization, even if it's just within image, you don't have that facility within GelAnalyzer. Overall, GelAnalyzer has done a passable job, it's done a good job. I've picked it up pretty quickly. I still haven't worked out why the standard manager is there if you need to type them in automatically, but I'm sure with some reading I could find that out. But yeah, feel free to try out a copy of our own Phoretix 1D software using the link in the description below, and compare it to GelAnalyzer yourself for your images and see which feels best to you. If you've got anything that you like in GelAnalyzer that you'd like to bring across to Phoretix, please get in touch with us and we'll have a conversation about it, but it's very likely that we'll be able to bring that level of functionality across to Phoretix 1D, so you can have an all-in-one package that does everything that you want, just how you want it.